Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our driver ratings for the British Grand Prix. If this is your first time here, we're going to give every driver a score between 1 and 10 for their performance this weekend. Before we get in, remember to like and subscribe, of course, and a special thank you to our members, Dakota and the Joyous James. If you want to become a member and get shout-outs in the videos, there is a link in the description. Right then. Shall we get started? And as always, we get started with the Haas of Kevin Magnussen. He qualified 17th, finished the race in 12th. The Haas had a lot of upgrades coming into this weekend. And you know what? It did look pretty good. I mean, it wasn't as good as their Austria results, but that was exceptional. I still think Magnussen looked pretty good. Probably let himself down a little bit in qualifying, but I think made up for it with some good moves throughout the pack. In the end, just missing out on a points result. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. Although his teammate, once again, not featured in the top 3 of the official F1 Driver of the Day vote, but definitely in contention for Driver of the Day for me, qualified 6th, finished 6th, which is a second 6th place finish in a row for Nico Hülkenberg in a Haas, everybody. In a Haas. So he's doing exceptionally well. He's doing absolutely fantastic. He gets a 10 out of 10 from me, does Nico Hülkenberg. Moving across now to Stake F1 Team Kick Sauber, and Zhou Guanyu qualified 14th. Incredible qualifying performance. He seemed to pit a million times, and whenever you looked at him on the timing board, he was always last by about 40 seconds. Really just off the pace. He started on the softs, which made no sense whatsoever because you knew that rain was coming. So it's just a perseverance game until the rain arrives. So why start on the softs, I'll never know. And like I said, was just in the pits all the time, never really did anything. He gets a 3. It's not his fault because it was the strategy. But I didn't see anything outside of qualifying which told me that he was any good. Well, you know what? I'll change it to a 4. I'm being generous here. It's a 4 because his qualifying was very good. 14th was good for the Stake F1 Team Kick Sauber. Bottas, on the other hand, qualifies 16th, finishes 15th. I'll give him a 6. There you go. Across to the racing build now with Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki's coming off the back of a couple results he won't be too happy with, but this one was pretty good. Qualified 13th. In the end, finished off 10th. I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10. I think it's pretty fair. A good point for the racing bill, but nowhere near as good as what Yuki has delivered towards the starting points of the season. Daniel Ricciardo, on the other hand, not a great qualifying for him in 15th, would end up finishing 13th. I'll give him a 6. An okay result for Daniel Ricciardo. Now, this man is an interesting one. Logan Sargent qualifies 12th, finishes 12th. A fantastic result for Logan Sargent, who, often gets criticised a lot. I think rightfully, but there you go. But here, I thought he delivered really, really well. I mean, if you look at this, the people he beat, there's lots of people behind him who you would say are much better drivers than he is, but he managed to go quite well. And in the end, finished... Well, he wasn't 12th, was he? He was 11th. He gained a position, of course. He was 11th place, just missing out on a point. I'm really tempted to give him the full 10, because I think this is his best performance possibly ever. Maybe even better than his performance when he scored points, because in that one, he needed 2 people to be disqualified to get to the points finish. I think this is his highest on-track finish ever in Formula 1. I'm going to give him a 10. I'm being generous to old Logie Bear there. Cross to Alexander Albon now. Qualified 9th, finishes 9th, gets 10 out of 10. 2 good points for the Williams team. 2 10 out of 10s for the Williams. Fantastic. Williams having a great time. Alpine aren't. Esteban Ocon qualified 18th. Very disappointing qualifying for Alpine. I mean, Gasly's was more understandable. We'll get onto that in a little second. But Ocon, 18th place for him. Alpine, I keep on saying week after week after week, they're heading in the right direction. Big step backwards this weekend. 18th for Ocon. He, like Zhou, started on the softs. Why? And then was just in and out of the pits, went on the inters in that early stage when whoever went on the inters really messed up, and then just from there, Ocon was nowhere, never really showed any pace at all, but ended up finishing 16th. I've written down 5 here, but I feel that's a bit too generous, actually. I'm going to push that down. It's going to be a 4 for Esteban Ocon. Now, Gasly's a weird one, and I'm not actually going to give him a rating, which is bad because, I might as well just give him a 0. But a 0 sounds harsh, but I'm just going to go as unrated. So Gasly comes into the weekend with a 50-place grid penalty, allegedly. That's apparently what it said. So he knew that he's starting from the back no matter what. So in qualifying, he just sets one lap time and calls it a day, understandably, because there's no point wasting tyres on fast lap times if you're going to start from the back. Then he goes to the back of the grid, he's ready to get going, and then a gearbox issue on the formation lap means that he can't even start the race properly. So I feel it'd be wrong to give him a score, because what am I scoring? He did one lap in qualifying where he was on the intermediate tyres, and then he didn't do anything in the race. So it'd be hard to score him, but I don't think he didn't do anything wrong. So I'm just going to leave Gasly as unscored for this one, which is a shame, but I don't really know what else I can do. Lance Stroll, though, had a very good weekend. Lance Stroll qualified 8th, finished the race in 7th. A fantastic result for the Aston, which has looked absolutely dreadful. And, once again, in both sessions, beats Alonso. Stroll has really been showing himself really quite well in the more recent races. I mean, he's had his one-offs here and there where he's looked like the good old Stroll, but he's beaten Alonso quite regularly over like the last 5 races or so. I give Lance Stroll a 10 out of 10. 7th place in that Aston as it is right now. Hasn't had any upgrades since Monaco, any major upgrades since Monaco. Doing very well. And you know what? Fernando did well as well. So he qualified 10th, finished in 8th. Give him a 9. There you go, Fernando. Very good for Aston Martin. Right then, who is next? It's Oscar Piastri. Now, Oscar Piastri qualifies 5th, finishes the race in 4th, but that is not in the entire story, as we know. As I said in my race reaction video, I think McLaren really screwed him over in the pit stops. They should have double stacked the cars, but they didn't. They let Piastri go out for another lap, which cost him everything. He just massively fell down the grid, went from being within a second of the lead to being in 6th place, 6 seconds behind the guy in 5th place. So that really should have wrecked his race, but he was able to fight back. He was very much in control of the second pit stop from the wets to the dries, very much telling the team, I want this tyre, which is, a great leading move from a driver so young. So I have given Oscar Piastri a 9 out of 10. I thought the team went against him, but his driving himself was actually fantastic. A young driver like that, only his 2nd ever season, at Silverstone, which is a high-speed track, which is, it's a difficult track, in changing conditions, on dry tyres on a wet track, he was able to challenge the likes of George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, and Lando Norris. He was able to control the race himself later on, feeding the information to the pit crew to get himself on the right tyres to fight back. The only thing that let him down was the McLaren strategists. Otherwise, he would have been definitely in that conversation for the podium at the end of the race. So for me, Oscar Piastri, absolutely fantastic. I can't give him a 10 just because of what happened, but overall I'll give him a 9. And this is where something might get a bit controversial, because I've given Lando Norris a 7. Despite finishing ahead of Oscar Piastri, I've given him a 7. And I want you to hear me out, because there are multiple reasons as to why. So he qualified 3rd and he finished in 3rd. In qualifying, you could argue he should have had pole. I don't know what happened with his last lap, but he didn't finish it. So he could have done much better in qualifying. Then in the race itself, he had some great pace. He did lose a position to Max Verstappen at the start, but was able to fight that back, really went into his own. And then he got the first pit stop, of course, from McLaren, which we discussed with Piastri leading the race yet again. Then the second pit stop. So he doesn't pit on the same lap as everyone else. Can't really blame him for that. But then he has the new medium tyres, but doesn't feed back to the pit crew that that's the tyre that he wants. Goes for the soft, which eventually is what let him down and made him lose P2 to Max. And also, he was the one who skidded across his pit box and made that pit stop go a little bit longer, which is what gave Lewis the lead of the race. So as much as Lando did beat Oscar, I think overall he made a hell of a lot worse decisions than Oscar did, and despite that, still beat him because of how badly Oscar had been mistreated by McLaren on that one pit stop. Now that might be controversial, and he may disagree, and that's okay. But that's why I'm giving him a 7 out of 10. Across to Ferrari. Tale of two halves, bloody hell. So Carlos Sainz qualifies 7th, finishes in 5th. Gave him a 9 out of 10 for that. The Ferrari was absolutely nowhere this weekend, yet he still did very well. Oh dear, Charles Leclerc. I say it every week, but this man has sold his soul to the devil to win the Monaco Grand Prix, and now he is feeling the negatives of that. So, qualifying went wrong. Out in Q2, qualifies 11th place. Due to this, he has a good start, to be fair. I think he was up to like 7th a few laps in. When the rain comes down, because he's a bit further back, they feel, let's take a risk and put him onto the Inters. That just wipes him out for the rest of the race because Inters were not the right choice. In the end, finishes 14th. So, a bad result all in all, but a bad result which all stems from that initial qualifying. If he doesn't qualify low down, they don't take the risk. So, I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. Hopefully, Charles Leclerc can have some luck at some point, because like I said in the reaction video, between Monaco and now, he's only scored points once with a 5th place in Spain. Bad weekend for Charles Leclerc. Oh, mixed weekend for George Russell as well. What a difference a day makes. Qualifies on pole, of course. Leads quite a bit of the first section of the race. Then drops down to P2. At one point he's P4, but he's still in contention there. Then has to retire the car due to a water system failure or something, I think is what they said. So really quite disappointing for George Russell. I feel I'm going to give him a 6, and maybe that is generous, but, he did get pole. He did lead the race. He was, he dropped down to 4th, but was still in contention there. I feel like he would have been there at the end. No, obviously nothing he could do with the DNF. So a 6 for George Russell. Then this man qualifies 2nd, wins the race, 10 out of 10. Perfection from Lewis Hamilton. First race since Saudi 2021 that he's won. And yeah, fantastic stuff. What else can I say? 10 out of 10 for Lewis Hamilton. Easy peasy. Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez. I don't like being mean about Sergio, because I really like him. If you go back to 2020, 2021, Sergio is easily my second favourite driver on the grid. And even before that, when he was Force India, I like Sergio. Sauber, 2012, Sergio Perez and the Sauber. Oh my god, he was fantastic. That Sergio Perez, Kamui Kobayashi team for Sauber, I don't think you can get better than that for Sauber. But now, oh no. So he spins in qualifying, means that he starts 19th. Due to this, they take an engine change, going from the pit lane. You know what? At the start of the race, he's going quite well. Steadily making his way through the grid. I thought, here we go, Sergio. This is the one. You're going to do this. You're on the hard tyres and you're still moving quite well. Then the rain starts and he's one of the many who went to the Inters and just ruined their race from there. But then even just from there, no pace from him, no anything from him in the end. I mean, Leclerc was on the Inters and managed to get at least a 14th. Sergio just did nothing. It's a 1, isn't it, realistically? I mean, he finished the race, so you've got to give him something. So I'll give him a 1. I mean, it's just another dreadful, dreadful result for Sergio Perez. And you know what? He's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. He comes across really nice, and he seems like a decent bloke. But it's just so sad to see him in this position. And you know, I think maybe if he was to move to a midfield team now with less pressure on him, we'd see that Sergio of old come out. You know, that tyre whisperer, that guy who's always in contention for the top 5 despite the car not being there. But here, you know, the Red Bull's not the best car in the grid right now. I reckon this weekend it was probably 3rd. I think that's pretty fair to say. But you know, a 3rd place car shouldn't be qualifying 19th and finishing 17th. Sergio Perez, bloody hell. Max Verstappen now. You know what? That was a fantastic weekend for Max Verstappen. I thought he really, really showed how good he is here. You know, it's races like this and races like Canada which show how good Max Verstappen is. The Red Bull was not the fastest car on the grid this weekend, and yet at moments he made it seem like it was. So in qualifying, of course, he makes that mistake and goes into the gravel, damages the floor. But despite having quite a severely damaged floor that he said mechanics were just cutting chunks out of in between sessions, he still qualifies P4, he was 3 tenths off of pole, and he was still quite close to Lando Norris. So a very good lap considering how damaged that floor was, and we know how integral the floors are to the current car concepts. And then from there, great start to get up into P3. At the start of the race, he just looks like he's nowhere. You just look like, oh my God, he's going to retire the car. He's just going backwards, trying to save the tyres. It seems like the Red Bull was really struggling with tyre degradation at this point. But then through the wet, fights really well, gets the pit stop calls right, and then towards the end has to come through again, gets past Lando Norris with ease. And then you're thinking, can he do it? Can he win this race? And eventually, no, he couldn't. You have to settle for P2. But yet, another fantastic result for Max Verstappen. In a car that shouldn't be P2, he was P2. Max Verstappen is a 10 out of 10. There you go. That is the driver rating. So our highest scorers are Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Lance Stroll, Alexander Albon, Logan Sargent, and Nico Hülkenberg. Lots of 10s for us this weekend. That's what we like to see. Lowest score goes to Sergio Perez. My driver of the day, of course, would have been is Lewis Hamilton out of all those who finished on a 10 out of 10. Or Nico Hülkenberg. Show him some love. If you're watching this, next weekend, even if Nico Hülkenberg doesn't finish, we'll all vote for Nico Hülkenberg. It'll be fun. Right, there you go. Let me know what your scores are in the comments. I'll see you. It's 2 weeks now. Oh my God. Right, there will be a video on the channel on Friday. It is my long-awaited every Fernando Alonso teammate video ranked from worst to best. It's finally coming out on Friday, so make sure you check that one out when it comes out on Friday. I'll be back on Saturday for the weekly news video if there is any news to report. Then the week after that, we'll be back for the Hungarian Grand Prix, the penultimate race before the summer break. So a lot to come on the channel as always, so subscribe for that. I will see you then. Until next time, have a good one. Goodbye.